The assault on Israel's legitimacy seems to have been intensifying in recent years, despite a growing awareness of the challenge. We spoke yesterday from this stage about the relationship between delegitimization and anti-Semitism. Jonathan, where in your opinion does this challenge meet ADL's core mission? And why did you decide that it would be one of ADL's big bets?
So first, remember I told you maybe an hour ago that we were going to drill down on this big bet of delegitimization? And I shared with you the great pride I take in the partnership we have with the Reut Institute. We should all clap for that. So I think what's going to be exciting about this session is you're not only going to hear from me, but you're going to hear from Gidi Grinstein himself, who is an incredibly impressive individual, a great thinker about where the Jewish people are and where the state of Israel is going. I think this is going to give you a chance to understand why I am so enthusiastic about what we're going to do together. So what I'll just say, and then I really want to toss it over to Gidi, is it is clear that we have a problem on our hands vis-a-vis this movement of delegitimization. And I think if you build from Darren's comments yesterday, there is a moment for us to find common cause with others. There is a moment for us to leverage our assets, and there is a moment for us to use our strengths to not only respond, but to get in front of this narrative, get in front of this story, and neutralize it going forward. That's the goal here, right? I want us to get out of the reactive mode. I want us to get into the proactive strategic mode. And I think our relationship with Gidi and the work we're about to talk about affords us that possibility to make sure we understand the moment and we start to look ahead.
Gidi, Reut's previous work on the subject of delegitimization focused on relevancy gaps, which identified blind spots in terms of how the community thought about the problem. Since 2010, Reut's last major work in this area, what has changed?
So first of all, I want to thank you all for inviting us, and I want to really say that this has been a very special partnership. And I know it's been a partnership with you, but I also want to acknowledge that Harry was the one that brought us to ADL.
That's right.
And worked through the issues and helped us establish this meaningful relationship. So I want just to explain what was so attractive for us in this relationship with ADL very briefly before I go into your question. So 2006, we see a huge spike in what was then an undefined phenomenon. Now we call it the delegitimization of Israel, which means the rejection of the right of the state of Israel to exist and of the right of the Jewish people to self-determination. This is an idea that has been gravitating and proliferating more and more in the West, including in the United States of America. And when we started studying this phenomena in 2006, it was actually a blind spot. And it took it about 4 years to become the focus of attention of the government of Israel and of many Jewish institutions. So Harry asked about what happened since 2010. And the answer is that it went from being a blind spot to being everybody's focus. And one of the things we saw was, and yes, it's a guesstimate, that our community will be investing in addressing this problem in 2016 20 times more resources compared to what was invested in 2010. So the big question of our work together right now is, what's happening to all these resources and why are we not getting the effect that we're looking for? And this is where the relationship with ADL was so important, because we as a small Israeli nonprofit strategy and research group, we were looking for a big partner. But we were looking for a partner who wasn't just interested in their role in the field. We were looking for a partner who was committed to be a leader of the field. And this is the remarkable element about this relationship, that it's not just us framing in retrospect. Those of you that will read our agreement, it says in the first paragraph, this is a partnership that is here to serve the entire field Every leader and organization in the field that is committed to fighting the delegitimization of Israel and the BDS movement in its anti-Semitic and blatant anti-Israel format, that relationship, our work is there to serve them. And I think that this is a remarkable statement by the leadership of this organization, by Jonathan and by the board that approved it, and all the staff that went along, saying we're not just doing this for ourselves, we're doing this for everybody else. And within this effort, we are working to identify what could be the unique value proposition of ADL. So based on all of the ideas that we have all of the needs that have been identified, we have highlighted 4 key strategic interventions that ADL can and should lead on. And I know that Jonathan has already pledged the commitment to do so earlier this morning. So I think that this is a very special relationship here with an organization that is committed to leading the field. And that's a very important statement. Not just self-serving, but also helping all others that are committed to the same cause.
I just want to build on that. I think this is one of the most important dimensions of what we're trying to do here. Not only vis-a-vis this, although it's material here, but generally, the new positioning of ADL. As many of you have heard me say, I don't want to only see our organization and limit our horizons to being a leader in the organized Jewish community. Of course we need to do that. But I believe we're playing on a whole different level. And we need to embrace that. And that means being more open than maybe we might have been in the past. That means not stooping to the level to criticize other leaders, and acknowledging we are here to support the community, the entire Jewish community. And so sometimes you gain in a market by holding on tight, and sometimes you gain by opening up. And this is a good example of exemplifying what I think is a new value that we now have.
So just very briefly, what happened since 2010? 20x investment, what happened to the resources? The answer is, our side, much, much better on many areas, and I can name them, and there are many great organizations out there doing phenomenal work.
Absolutely.
But their side, the pro-delegitimization, anti-Israel movement is also much better. So what we're looking at is basically a competition of learning between our side and their side. We're getting better, they're getting better. We're moving ahead, they're moving ahead. They're learning us, we're learning them. And because of that, one of the key recommendations we're making here is that our community must invest much more in being able to strategize, making long-term fundamental investment in the infrastructure, on web intelligence and on other things, because ultimately today, what we're seeing is that what we understand is that our challenge is to outlearn and out-adapt the other side. And 3 of the key initiatives that ADL is committed to, which means a center on thought leadership, leading in the web intelligence field, and
Activating the field.
and activating the field offices and partnering with other organizations that have very strong field presence. These 3 initiatives are all about infrastructure to be able to do big things.
So I want to zoom out and situate this effort within the broader context that we're discussing. Yesterday, we all heard at Never Is Now, Darren Walker, the president of the Ford Foundation, talk about the central role ADL must play in our current moment. He said, democracy, American democracy, needs ADL more than ever. And just a few moments ago, we heard Ambassador Dayan speak about the basis of the strong alliance between the United States and Israel on the basis of shared democratic values. How does that relate to the effort that we're launching now in terms of the role of ADL in building the fabric of American democracy and the role of shoring up Israel's legitimacy in the world?
Why don't you talk strategically about that, and then I'll talk specifically about ADL.
So this is obviously a huge question that people all over the world are looking at. And I'd like to focus on one element of it, which is that we are living in a period of polarization in our societies. It is much more difficult to straddle the center. Organizations that try to see both sides of an issue are compromised. And we're seeing a rise of the radical right and the radical left. not just in America and Europe, but also in Israel. And this is the backdrop for the significance of ADL and other organizations that are committed to maintaining the strong fabric of society and committed to being able and ethically committed to calling out the bad people on the left and on the right. So that these dynamics that are happening in America are also happening in Israel. And Dani Dayan spoke to it, and I speak to it, and many other Israelis. And there should be a coalition of the forces in Israel that are coming out against radicalism and the forces in America that are coming out against radicalism. Because what we're seeing in America and we're seeing in Israel, that democracy is more fragile than we thought. That the minorities in our societies are more at risk than we thought. And this is where your intervention, and when I say your, it's not just Jonathan and the professional leadership and the board, everybody in the room and all the supporters everywhere, your intervention is crucially important for American society. And similar organization like yours in Israel, crucially important for Israeli society.
Jonathan, how do you see leveraging innovation as part of this process?
Well, I mean, I think there are a couple things. As we think about innovation, part of it will be trying to find new ways to solve old. When we think about innovation, typically it's finding new ways to solve old problems. When we think about social innovation versus conventional, it's not faster, better, cheaper for private gain. It's actually for the public good, right? It's not so that I have more value for my shareholders, it's so I create more benefit for all stakeholders. So that's a point of differentiation. So I think we will use strategies of social innovation here to think about ways, for example, we could create unlikely alliances and new partners, let's say with folks in the business community, for whom this might not be a front and center issue. But for a business community that's increasingly thinking about how they can take values-driven approaches, I think there's an opportunity for us to make a values-driven play, why they should work with us. And kind of where Gidi was just a moment ago, there are challenges in Israel, but I'm rather not focused on the negative. I want to lean into the positive. I'd rather stay away in Israel from, antagonizing the forces that be. I want to be aspirational with the people who need power. So I think we might think about, as I was alluding to in my presentation earlier, how we can respond to BDS with a proactive, investment model. Instead of divest, invest. Invest in coexistence. Invest in marginal communities. Invest in creating economic value and social return. And when we can show companies here there's a value to doing that, it's using a strategy of social innovation to create a long-term, hopefully commercial benefit for them. So, look, this is not on the tips of the tongues of some of the organizations out there on our university campuses today, but it's looking ahead to like a frontier horizon and trying to anticipate what may come and neutralizing it before it happens.
Can I just give two examples? I just landed from Israel, and yesterday I had one of the most inspiring days that I could remember in Israel.
Oh.
In the morning, we were invited to speak to a conference about long-term economic development of an area in Israel called Amakim. It's like the valleys. It's like 3 valleys that are basically going from Haifa all the way to Jordan, separating the lower Galilee from the Carmel, Menashe, and Samaria mountains, okay? If you can imagine this stretch. This is a rural area, 50% Arabs, 50% Jews. And like rural America, they're struggling. So they're having a conference about their long-term economic development. And one of the key messages of Reut, this is why they invited us, is you have to find your unique value proposition. What is the unique value proposition that emerges from the conference? They're saying, number one, we're 50-50 Jews and Arabs. Number two, we're in the connection point between the northern West Bank, Palestinian, Jordan, and Israel. Where on the Israeli side, we're 50% Jews and Arabs, as I mentioned. Third, we have a lot of people in agriculture and a lot of people in low tech. They need technology to drive productivity. And then there is the startup nation. Put all this mix together, and what you get is in the area of Bet Shean, those of you who know it, kind of remote, you could actually create an innovation center that specializes on the needs of low tech in agriculture and industry, taking needs from the Palestinians and from the Jordanians, training Palestinians and Jordanians in this work. And this is it could be an amazing ecosystem of coexistence, of progress, of dealing with needs that happen in Israel but are relevant to America, and everything can come together in this little area. And I'm just giving this example to illustrate the tremendous potential of the ideas that Jonathan is speaking about.
Yeah, like, to all these detractors on these campuses, right? A focus in response, to all those detractors on these campuses who've never been there, don't understand it. Our ability to be foot forward and make investments and elevate opportunities like this is a much more positive message, I think, just a much more constructive approach. And I'm super excited about it.
So I'd like to zoom in on the work that we're doing together and ask, what is the desired impact of our conceptual framework on the field writ large? And then what are some of the specific areas that ADL is going to seek to make an impact in the field?
I think someone.
No, you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say, ultimately, there are two major effects that we would like to see. And what we mean by effect is, it's sort of an outcome that is bigger than the sum of all of our activities, okay? It's like sort of an aspirational, something we'd like to see, but there's never really a direct correlation between an action we take and the effect that we get, okay? It's the sum of all of our activities and many other people's activities together. The first effect is internal. We have to broaden the tent.
Totally.
We are dealing with, on the other side, a very diverse group of people. Actually, when you think about it, the breakthrough moment of the anti-Israel movement was when they broadened the tent, when they understood that people that don't want to see Israel at all, and the people that are just criticizing Israeli policies, but they're not there to eliminate Israel, that these forces could work together. This was the bad people's moment of truth, the breakthrough moment in 2001 in Durban, South Africa, and since then they've been growing exponentially. Our side needs to also have a broad tent. We have to understand that when it comes to standing for the fundamental legitimacy of Israel, some people could be on the right and some people could be on the left. Some people could be liberal and others could be conservative. But on this cause, we stand together.
Yes.
And therefore, we have to be internally tolerant to
Yes.
each other in order to achieve these goals. We have to be united, even if we're not uniform. And I hope that that's a big message that comes out from our strategic framework that I hope will echo around the Jewish community. The second point is, we argue very clearly that delegitimizers are those that negate the right of Israel to exist and the right of the Jewish people to self-determination. When this approach is singularly applied to Israel, it's anti-Semitism. So with regard to the delegitimization of Israel, as I've just defined it, and to anti-Semitism, we would like to marginalize this movement and make it an illegitimate movement in America and anywhere around the world, at least among all developed nations. And these are the two effects of the strategy we'll be putting forward.
I don't think there's an organization better positioned to respond to those challenges than ADL. I don't think there's an organization in the Jewish community with sufficient credibility on both sides of the aisle that has the authentic capacity to be inclusive like we do. That's willing to, again, criticize particular policies, but stand firmly and ferociously against anti-Semitism like us. I think it's our time.
And I know you spoke about it, and to reach out to key constituencies, minorities in America, where we need to invest and build relationships and partner with them on real issues that are painful to us and painful to them.
Yep.
And these deep relationships could carry the fundamental legitimacy of Israel and the Jewish people deep into the future. And that's also a position that ADL is uniquely capable of taking.
So I want to ask you, what are some of the key recommendations from the strategic framework that emerge for 2017? What does the near-term horizon look like?
Well, I might actually maybe we can modify the question. Gidi, can you talk about what is the strategic framework and how does it enable then action plans like this?
Okay, so basically, the strategic framework, hopefully coming out very soon, is a document That document is based on an extensive field research, more than 150 interviews and site visits in the United States of America, in Washington, New York, Boston, and the Bay Area, in Israel, and with Europeans and South Africans. So we have covered the field. Based on that, the strategic framework offers an analysis of what I referred to earlier as the 20X question, which means, what are we doing much better now compared to 2010? What is the other side doing much better now compared to 2010? Why are we not getting the effect that we want? And therefore, what should we be doing moving forward? When it comes to moving forward, you can look for 2 clusters of recommendations. The first cluster is what we call structural recommendations. There are a number of areas where our community has been underinvesting. First of all, in what is called in the military space intelligence, collecting and analyzing information, and then turning that intelligence into strategy. If you think about it, no one in the Jewish community today has taken upon itself or herself to actually strategize on, research and strategize on how to confront the delegitimization of Israel. And remembering that this is an ongoing effort, because it's a tit for tat. We get better, they get better. So we always need to collect information and analyze. Secondly, in the cyberspace, massive underinvestment in the cyberspace, which is an exponentially growing in terms of its significance in the field. And third, there are a lot of Jewish organizations out there that are not really specializing. For example, everybody is clustering on campus, right? They're all there. And what we're saying is, let's begin to specialize. Let's help every Jewish organization identifying their unique value proposition in fighting the delegitimization of Israel, and then focus on that unique value proposition. So this is all about what we call structural recommendations. Then there are policy recommendations. And the policy recommendations focus primarily on the need to distinguish between those that are hardcore delegitimizers, really bad guys, negating the right of Israel to exist and the right of the Jewish people to self-determination. Those that are harsh critics, always critical of Israel, creating the intellectual foundations for the third group, which is the largest group, we call them the long tail, that are critical of Israeli policies. They're willing to participate in a boycott or divestment activity here or there, but they're not fundamentally rejecting of the right of Israel to exist or the right of the Jewish people to self-determination. These groups need to be distinguished, and every group requires a different approach. And our strategic framework highlights the needs of every group and the essential response in each of these categories. So that's what you should be looking for, and it's going to be coming out very soon. And we actually would be really looking forward, and I hope I'm speaking for you as well, for your feedback, because it's a work in progress. And we will need to learn together, all of us, and each and every one of you in your specific location. You're like a sensor for us, because you can teach us about what's going on in Orange County, in the Bay Area, in Florida, South Africa, London. These are all areas that are vitally important for us, and we'd like to learn from you.
Gidi, Jonathan, I want to thank you both for your time. This wraps up our session, and I'm looking forward to moving this conversation forward with all of you.
Well done, Harry.
Thank you.
Thank you.